Hello everybody and welcome back to the Dragon's Library. So today, I'm going to be discussing Black Myth Wukong. Now, I'm not really going to do a full review of the game. Quite frankly, I've talked about it enough in streams and how much I love it, and I played the whole thing, and it was really good. But, there is something I still want to talk about this game. While it is a 10 out of 10 action RPG, it is not, despite what many would tell you, a Souls-like, and I'm going to explain why. So, what does Souls-like mean, at least in my opinion? There are three main contributors, and none of them are really deal-breakers on their own, but they lay out the general rules most games abide, and most games break, like, one of the rules. The first of these is the setting, which seems a little weird for a game, like you can have this gameplay style in anything, right? Yes, and also no. Generally speaking, even when you have a defined character, in a Souls-like game, the world has already kind of started to end, and your character is often just some kind of random guy or bottom feeder scurrying about trying to accomplish some goal which may or may not have significance, but it doesn't really matter because everything's kind of been fucked to hell and back already. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have a character-focused game. Sekiro is a pretty good example of this. Another Crab's Treasure has a very defined character. But even in those games, they're still going about an empire or a kingdom that's fallen to ruin. In Another Crab's Treasure, you find the ancient, lost kingdom of the crabs, where this old magic shell resides. And yes, they're trying to save their current home, and the characters are more defined than in most Souls-likes, but I would still argue it's a Souls-like because it does kind of follow that rule. This is a decayed world where kingdoms have risen and fallen over the years, and even if you save your own, it'll only be a matter of time before yours is also swept away. Following that, Souls games tend to be very deliberate in their combat systems. Most of the time, they're action RPGs. And this is the most common Souls-like you'll see, is a game just playing like Dark Souls. Another Crab's Treasure is actually a good example here. And H-Bomber Guide has a lot more details on what I'm about to explain. If you ever want to watch one of his videos on Dark Souls, I would highly recommend them. In Dark Souls, when you don't have stamina, you can't do anything. Like, at all. The whole thing is that when you commit to an action, it is going to happen and you can't stop it. Now, that seems fairly obvious, but in a lot of action RPGs that are more style-focused, like Bayonetta or Devil May Cry, you're able to animation cancel out of some things even after you've committed to attacks. In Dark Souls, if you commit to healing and an enemy decides to attack you and you're like, oh shit, where have I gone wrong in my life? You're taking that freaking sword. And this is a deliberate choice. It forces you to actually examine your resources. Even in games that don't have a stamina bar, like Hollow Knight. Honestly, even dodge rolling and iframes aren't necessarily required in a Souls game, though they can be nice for helping the player to avoid attacks. Finally, there is also the feature that I think is weirdly the most important for a Souls-like game. And it is the defining feature of the Souls series, the Dark Souls games, Elden Ring, Bloodborne, even Sekiro, in my opinion. And that is when you die in these games, you respawn at a checkpoint, all the enemies come back, and you have lost something. Usually it's your level up currency / experience, but whatever it is, you have lost a chunk of your resources, and if you die again, they're lost forever. However, you can retrieve them right now if you can get to the enemies that killed you without dying, and either recover them from the floor or kill an enemy that's picked them up. This is what I would say is the signature Dark Souls mechanic, and I would argue games without it aren't really Souls-likes. They're just action RPGs that are taking inspiration from Dark Souls. If you look at Black Myth Wukong, you can see, while it does resemble a Souls-like superficially, that one's a bit more ambiguous. You could argue that Wukong has a sort of repetitive cycle mechanic that's, reminiscent of Souls' Dark Age and Light Age cycles. You are sort of a nameless individual, the Destined One, even if you are later revealed to just be a reincarnation of some Wukong. I know, spoilers, but it was so heavily foreshadowed, I'm not considering that an actual spoiler. Aside from that, it doesn't actually play the same way as them. For example, the deliberate combat system. You'd be like, oh, but, Dragon, this game has a frickin' stamina bar. How can it not be a Souls-like? Not every action RPG that has a stamina bar is a Souls-like. It's not just having a stamina bar, it's the way that they use that stamina bar. In Souls, if you don't have stamina, you can't do anything. In Black Myth Wukong, you can. If you are out of stamina in Black Myth Wukong, you can't run and you can't do a charged heavy attack. That is it. You can still perform light attacks, you just can't use the final finisher in the combo. And you can still cast spells and use items and stuff. And of course, that's not even mentioning the biggest mechanic, recovering something after death. In Black Myth Wukong, when you die, there are no consequences.
There will be no consequences. There will be no hangovers. We could do whatever we wanted. Ah!
That's true. We could do whatever we want.
No, there are none. You don't lose your experience points or your will when you die. You just respawn. And one of the biggest things with Dark Souls is that it made death matter. And in Black Myth Wukong, death does not. There is no consequence to running into the middle of a lava field to retrieve an item and then dying immediately, because you're not going to leave behind a certain amount of will that you might have to recover later. There's not really a risk other than a time loss when you go and press ahead in a dangerous area. You're not going to have to get through those dangerous enemies again to recover your massive amount of experience or money to buy stuff. So, in conclusion, I do not think Black Myth Wukong, while it is an excellent game, is a Souls-like game and should be treated as such. It is an amazing action RPG that has a lot of fun, difficult boss battles. It's very likely that people that enjoy the Dark Souls games will still enjoy this game, but that doesn't necessarily make it a Souls-like game. So, yeah. Moving on to the announcements, just a quick thing first. Did you guys like this? I'm trying to do more video essay-based stuff, so if you're enjoying that, let me know. I do still think Black Myth Wukong is a 10 out of 10 game, and you should definitely play it. And hopefully I will have us out before Tuesday when I'm going to be doing a sort of stream where I'm going to do a retrospective of the year, go over my favorite books, movies, shows, and games. I thought it'd be a fun thing to do while I'm playing like Astrobot or something. It'll be interesting. So, yeah. We've got the subscribe orb. Click on it, go to my channel, subscribe. You'll notice there's a shiny new logo. So click on it. It looks so great, doesn't it? And there's also a video of mine that YouTube recommends. So why don't you check that out? Also, one of my shorts finally got over 10,000 views, and I'm like really happy about that. So keep it up. Thanks for watching. Bye.